So we are getting close to test day, and again, I have another tip I kind of want to go over with you and explain how you can use prompts like this or create some like your own to expose students to just different ways they may have to set up their planning. I'm going to pull up one of the lessons. This is from 4th grade. So if you don't have the lesson in front of you, take a look at the screen and you'll see that for this lesson, it requires you to use 2 passages, one on basketball, one on baseball. And the prompt is, you have just read several passages about the history of 2 popular sports. Write an informative essay on how these 2 sports are similar and what makes them important. Use details from the passages to support your answer. So a few schools have done this as a practice writing, and I've scored the papers. And probably our number one issue was answering this prompt because it's not as straightforward. This prompt is asking the students to write an essay about how the 2 sports are similar and what makes them important. It could also be an issue if this same prompt was written a little differently. Maybe it said compare the 2 sports or compare and contrast the 2 sports. The students need to know everything they learned and every way they set up the essay is exactly the same. They're planning, they just have to think about it a little differently. And let me show you what they need to change. So let's say we're looking at either this prompt, like I said, like I just read to you, write an informative essay on how these 2 sports are similar and what makes them important, or the prompt rewritten a little differently. You have just read several passages about the history of 2 popular sports. Write an informative essay comparing and contrasting these 2 sports. So with either of these, it's still not just saying, write an informative essay about baseball or write an informative essay about basketball. It's asking them to kind of do 2 things. The first one, it's saying tell how they're similar and important. And that second prompt example here is asking for comparing and contrasting. So let me show you all they need to do. They're always going to have their introduction, their conclusion. And this is, let's say the prompt is the one about tell how baseball is similar and important. Let me bring that one back up for you real quick. So I'm going to copy and paste this down so you can see it. Okay, so let's say we're talking about this one. Okay, so all they would do in their planning is either choose 2 ways they're similar, and maybe 1 way they're important. They can do it that way. Or they can do 1 way they're similar, 1 way they're important, 1 way they're similar. Or they could do 2 ways basketball and baseball are important and 1 way they're similar. And I want you to show your kids that there's many different ways to set this up. So when they're doing their introduction, they'll put, I'm just going to shorten it, put baseball, basketball on their INC. Baseball, basketball, and then for their topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, they're just going to, again, either maybe they'll choose 1 way they're similar, and then how they're similar again, and then how they're important. And maybe the next kid will put how they're important here, similar here, and similar here. It doesn't matter. What the problem is that they have to pick 2 things and there's 3 middle paragraphs. So they just need to know you're just going to do 2 of one of them. It does not matter. And I want them to know there's many, many, many different ways to set it up. Same thing goes if they get a prompt like this that says write an informative essay comparing and contrasting these 2 sports. So let's look at this one. Let me change the bottom prompt. Same thing with the comparing and contrasting. So they can either compare and then maybe contrast down here. Maybe the next student's going to compare, contrast, and then compare. Or maybe they'll do contrast, compare. It doesn't matter, okay? And again, I want them to see all the different ways. But remember, because they have to compare, which is one thing, and contrast, which is one thing, all the kids go, what am I supposed to do? There's 3 paragraphs. You're just going to do 2 of one of them. Okay, it doesn't matter. This is a very important lesson to practice. If you are a 5th grade teacher, I would ask your 4th grade teacher for this lesson. I am also going to include this lesson in the attachments of this video because I want you to have this prompt and the passages to practice this. We never know what kind of prompt is going to be put in front of them on test day, and I want them to be prepared. And I don't want them to throw all the skills we've taught them out the window, because nothing is going to change as far as how they put that essay together. All that's going to change is they're just going to do 2 of one of the things it's asking for. That's it. Or, like I've said in my previous videos, if they just want to do a 4-paragraph essay, that is perfectly fine. But remember, it's just going to have to be longer. They have to make up for it in quantity. So like I explained in my previous video a few weeks ago about writing a 4-paragraph essay, if you have the curriculum, there's a lesson in section 5 called How to Write a 4-Paragraph Essay. Instead of just having A's and B's for detail, they're going to add a C. But most of the time, that's harder for kids. I'm just being honest with you, because now they have to find another piece of evidence and elaborate more. So it's usually easier for kids to do 3 medium size than 2 extra large, but it does not matter which way they go. 4 or 5 is perfectly fine. So again, lesson 107, this prompt here with the passages, one's on baseball, one's on basketball. And although I have this one prompt, you can also practice using this second prompt here when it says to compare and contrast those 2 sports. I would definitely do this as a lesson. I would model, I would talk about it and explain to the kids so that nothing's confusing for them. All right, remember, if you all have any questions in these last few weeks for the test, please feel free to visit the website, www.topscorewriting.com. Our email and phone number is up in the top left-hand corner. And if you need anything, please reach out. Have a wonderful day.